Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. It is Wednesday, the 12th of February 2025, and I am still sick. I still have a sore throat, and now my nose is also slightly stuffed. But that's no excuse, right? Someone has to do the grind. Now I've been awake for a while now because, sleeping's kind of difficult with all of that. So I decided we might as well. All right, I can hear myself, so I guess we're on. Good morning, dear Demidrek. How are you doing? Hello, Britain, and hello, Ori. How are you guys doing? Yeah, I guess we were. It's hard to not also talk about that one big thing. Just after I said that I was actually happy with the direction that the channel was his channel was taking. Yeah, well, I guess that's a lesson I have learned. Hopefully, no. I don't know much. Don't know what to say about it beyond. I think this is very much a general YouTuber problem in a larger way, and maybe I will make a video on that at some point. I don't know. I've seen that apparently Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews made something that has been taken down again. So there's that. And I think overly average band made a video that seems to be more serious because it's 10 minutes, not 2 minutes, like Matt's thing. And yeah, certainly sucks. I need to call my dentist during the first sprints because I accidentally pulled out the stitches from from Friday's surgery yesterday evening. I don't know why, but I guess through eating and all of that, they got tangled in food and slowly tore out over the last couple of days. They certainly became looser and looser and looser. Obviously, that's also because the swelling kind of goes back after the thing, and yeah, they're gone now. So I need to call them and ask them whether I still should come in on Friday to remove the stitches because that's obviously no longer necessary. And since I don't have any pain and it's not bleeding or anything, maybe they'll just say, "Well, I guess you're good now." And in that case, I can then call my normal dentist for the aftercare and getting at least a temporary sort of like tooth thing fitted in there so I don't look like the worst like a B movie pirate and kind of look like a B movie Viking again, which is what it is. So that's something I need to do during the first sprints, and I might watch Overly Average Ben's video on the Daniel Green situation, and we'll see where that goes. So yeah, I don't know what your work is, but presentations are never fun. So I hope you get some sleep, and I hope you can bully through that. I think it's very much I like the first time I went to like an international academic conference, and I went to Bologna, um, and that it was like called like the European conference on religion. It was like a large sort of like new thing they were kickstarting with philosophy of religion, history of religion, theology, everyone just like having their one conference where I guess the idea was to have like an internet sort of like interdisciplinary thing going, which I don't know how well that worked because they still put like each individual sort of like department in a different place within Bologna. But that was like my first international conference. And I was pretty, scared, especially since the one they picked for like a philosophy of religion, where I was supposed to give my first like international like presentation talk, whatever you want to call it, um, was in Santa Lucia. Santa Lucia is like a 12th century church that has later been turned into a lecture hall, but it's still a massive Gothic church, and suddenly you're like, okay, this is apparently where I have to talk about something around my PhD project. It's going to be fun, right? And my plan was to, go through the slides and figure out everything, and maybe re-prepare slides and do all of that preparatory stuff the day before, because I arrived the day before, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that at the hostel. And then what happened is that I met with a friend who plays in a really cool sort of progressive rock band, who lives near Bologna, and that is called Witchwood. I highly recommend them if you're into, a weird mix of Jethro Tull and Uriah Heep kind of music, which you should be. And so I met with the guitar player, and we had a couple of beers and walked through Bologna, which is a wonderful city. And what's really cool about Bologna is they have a conservatory for like jazz music, so you have a ton of like small bars where a lot of like students from like the conservatory just like have jam sessions every evening, right? You can just like walk into a place and there's a stage, and at some point just some people show up and play jazz. So we walked around and had a couple of beers and had a couple more beers and walked from like place to place, and it was really cool. And then I obviously came back to the hostel and opened my laptop and was trying to prepare, and just fell asleep. And I'm like, oh gods. So I was utterly unprepared to stand in this like fucking Gothic church and talk to a bunch of like professor from like all over Europe about something that I was planning to do for philosophy. And yeah, I got through it. Is what I bullshitted my way through that specific presentation with I guess a slight hangover. So good luck to your presentation tomorrow. I assume you are better prepared than me. Yeah, Britton, like if you're talking about Naomi's video, it's a very, very brutal kind of video. It's very, very emotionally intense. Yeah. If yeah, all the trigger warnings apply there. I don't necessarily love jazz. It's one of those things I try not to get into, because I know as soon as I get into it, it's just another rabbit hole, right? I'm already spending a lot of time invested in like heavy metal, and then there's like punk rock on the sides, and then there's like that open field of 70s hard rock and progressive rock, and then it's like you got to stop getting interested in other things, because there's only so much time and money and brain power. But it's nice to do that. Anyway, so good luck with your presentation tomorrow. I hope it goes well. Yeah. So yeah, I watched Naomi's video yesterday. I've kind of paid it. I mean, I am on the Daniel Green Discord server, and I seen how the mods handled the thing, which I think was very, very professional and very well done. In that I haven't checked this morning yet if there has been like another update. I don't think so. But basically, they are planning to either rebrand the server or move to a backup server to distance themselves from Daniel. We'll see how that goes. So I haven't checked if the server is still there. Who knows? All of this is stuff I will look into maybe during the first sprints. I also have some comments to reply to and all of that. What else can I say? I started reading Blood and Mistletoe, and it's obviously an interesting book, but that is kind of what I expected. It's very much the kind of book I was hoping for, because while it surveys the literature, the actual sources we have on druids in like the first chapter, which is a massive chapter, right? It's the audiobook has like 31 hours, which I guess translates into like an 850 kind of page kind of book, I guess. And yeah, the first chapter is and that 800-page book has like 12 chapters, including the very short introduction and very short conclusion. So you can imagine how long those chapters are, right? And it just surveys the whole like literature, your Julius Caesar, your Strabo, those kind of people, and the Irish and Welsh manuscripts from the Middle Ages, and the rest is just about how the image of the Druid was reconstructed from like the 15th, 16th century onwards as a one element of like creating a British national identity in a lot of ways. And that's always something I'm very interested in how we use sort of like stories and ideas to construct like a national identity in a lot of ways. So I'm very much looking forward to the rest of this book, even though I don't know if I can use it beyond anything else, use it for anything beyond, just being really into that's it. That, that's also good, right? So far it does not have the recipe for the strength potion. I hope it does so, right? Oh fuck! Sorry to hear, Britain, and glad you're okay. And sorry the car has some issues now. That shit can get expensive very quickly. Um, well, as I said, I think the video has been taken down again as of now, so I have no idea what he did or what he said there. So yeah, I don't. So I won't say anything on that. I think yeah, there's a very specific approach to what Matt does in general that works really well for him. That does not necessarily work well for me. So that's that. Anyway, as I said, I hope the Gallic. I mean, I haven't looked through the table of contents like for later chapters, but I sure hope that we get some Asterix elements in that book of the Druids, because outside of neo-pagan ideas and stuff like that, I feel like Asterix is probably one of the most influential depictions of Druids in for like the broader mainstream these days, at least in Europe. I don't know how popular or how well known Asterix is in, for example, in America, but like in Europe, that's a big deal. Like everyone, the idea of Druids wearing white robes and having golden sickles to pull down mistletoe is, I guess, the thing. And I think, like, I mean, that's the broader context there. I was wondering if people would make videos on the whole situation and how long people would wait for that and all of that, because this is sort of like the first or the second big um, thing of a booktuber doing something heinous, right? The other one was whatever his name was, being arrested for possessing CP 2 years ago. I keep forgetting who it was, like that sci-fi booktuber I never watched, but only found out about when Thomas on SF 180 or whatever his channel is called. I always confuse the numbers there. Mentioned it. So the question is always like how does a community interact? Is booktube an actual community? I mean, a lot of like booktubers have always sort of like distanced themselves from the big one by going like, well, I mean, clearly I'm not like him. I'm not like that because I'm true. I'm underground booktube, and this is mainstream and sellout and so forth. So I wonder if there's like a larger conversation that will happen or not. And getting in very early obviously means that you might get some, views because people are clearly looking for context right now. Don't doing that, but it also feels a bit like being a bit of a vulture, and because what you're gonna say, right? What you're gonna say about it, and so it's difficult to figure out what to do there. And I think it might be one of those moments where we can see sort of like the larger character of the booktube community sort of revealing itself in a lot of ways. Yeah, yeah, SFF 180. I like his channel. I just like his newer stuff. Like, he's good in that, but I always get the numbers wrong for whatever reason. And just to be clear, for someone missing the context, he was not the one arrested for CP. That was a different one, but SFF 180 was the one who broke the news when it happened, and then it kind of swapped over because both of them were a part of that sci-fi booktuber collective, or whatever you want to call it, that Media Death Cult was part of that. I don't know if that still exists, because I don't follow any of those people, because there's like secret source of Storycraft, who is incredibly bad as a booktuber, and there's Words in Time, who sucks even more, and I'm like, I'll let those people be. And there's like two people in there who know stuff about sci-fi, and that's Thomas from SFF 180, and that's obviously Moid from Media Death Cult, and the other two just don't know what they're talking about, so why watch? But yeah, but that was like 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, exactly. Thomas is a good dude. He was the video, because he was the first who found out back then. His video was you could tell how he was like struggling with having to find out that like someone he thought was a friend was arrested for something this heinous, and bad days back then, but he was kept very much on the down low in a lot of ways. I think this time is different because it is sort of like something that happened between two YouTubers that makes it difficult to sort of like just push someone out of the community and go like, well, that's that. And obviously the accusations came in form of a YouTube video, so we'll see how that goes. It's certainly an interesting situation to be in. So I'm gonna observe it more from a sociologist's angle than anything else at the moment, because what can you do? I believe Naomi. Fuck Daniel Green. It's pretty simple. Yeah, I remember Words in Time. I mean, the thing with Words in Time is something that I find somewhat like with a lot of like booktubers, some booktubers that are very successful in general, right? Is that he's fairly young and I assume he's fairly young. I don't know exactly, but he clearly hasn't, been around as long as, say, someone like Steve Donahue, yeah, right? So his opinions are often super hyperbolic, and I'm like, you can't say these things unless if you have only read like 10 books, right? To simplify here. And I remember like one of his early videos, like is Olympus, I don't know, it was Ilium, is Ilium the most complex sci-fi ever written? And I'm like, the answer is clearly no. Like even if you enjoy the book, if you have read like have read sci-fi to like any depth of the genre, you know that it's not exactly the most complex book ever written. It's badly executed, and the structure breaks down during Olympus because of all kinds of issues. But he's very confident in having wrong opinions a lot of the time. And that's more like my point is like, if you make the video and go like, well, this is clearly the most complex book I've ever written, then we're fine, right? That's good. But like, what with YouTube being clickbaity and all of that, everything has to be made as a pseudo objective statement, and I'm like, I wouldn't have the confidence to make that kind of statement. And I would argue that I've probably read more sci-fi and fantasy than Jonathan from Words in Time, and that's kind of the issue that I have with a lot of these younger booktubers. But on the other hand, what I've learned is, of course, that making these kind of statements, making these kind of thumbnails, making these kind of titles is something that a lot of people watching booktube really want, right? It's clearly successful. So yeah, I don't know what to do about that. But anyway, that's where we are right now. I'm gonna start the sprints now, because I think the dentist office opened at 8 a.m., so I can call them now and figure out what to do about the tooth situation, and then I might watch the video from Overly Average Ben, and also definitely go through my comments and stuff like that. So I'll see you all back in 45 minutes. That is 9:05. Good luck with whatever you're doing. Should you go to sleep, then, well, good night. And of course, good luck with your presentation tomorrow. And I am back and slightly late. I apologize. Sorry, I did manage to do the things. I did even call the surgeon for the stitches thing, and no, I don't have to go there on Friday, which means all good for Friday. And then I called my regular dentist, and I have an appointment on Monday at 9 a.m. So no sprints on Monday. I'm sorry to say, but thing is, I can go there, and then there will be a conversation about what will happen next, and at least that will mean that I might get like a temporary kind of thing put in, and that is a good thing because then pirate winter will be over. Until then, I can still do pirate stuff, but it's good to have the next sort of like date settled and figured out because yeah, waiting is always not my strong suit. So yeah, that's what happened. I also replied to some comments. I watched the Overly Average Ben video, and I found it a very good one. It's just a reply to what Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews did. Matt has removed the thing. He has apologized. What you do with that, I think, is very much up to each and every one of us. So yeah, I appreciate what Ben did. I think I would have been less polite if I had watched it, but it came out when I was already in bed and was already removed when I woke up this morning. So I was spared being incredibly angry on the internet, which probably a good thing. Good morning, Ida. Yeah, I hope so too. That you'll be very productive. Yeah. So at least I have I have until Monday to make more pirate videos, which I guess will mean at least one video on Revenger, which seems to be one of those books that I don't know if BookTube has ever talked about the Revenger stuff, which is a bit of a shame because it's really cool. And if something else piratey comes up, I mean, I've said this before. It's kind of difficult to talk about the pirate content in Live Ship Traders without larger context, and those are fucking massive books, all of them. So I should have I would have had to start much earlier if I wanted to do pirate stuff on if I wanted to include it in the pirate videos. Also, I don't think it works that well because it is so fantastic that it's much harder to sort of like take a lot of learn a lot of lessons from actual stuff we know about pirates or think we know about pirates and apply it to this. I think that's harder there. Oh wow, Bradley Duffy reviewed Revenger. I am not sure if I want to actually click on that link. He also reviewed Bone Silence. Okay. Ah, he reviewed all three. That's bad. Oh, well. That's yeah, just about it. Like two more, and then already my video for Eversion shows up. So I guess yeah, there is a need for more Revenger content. Hey Apollo, how you doing this morning? So yeah, maybe this is the thing where I talk about Revenger. The question there is, of course, whether I talk just about Revenger or about all three. If I want to talk about all three, that would of course mean, I mean, I need to buy a new bottle of rum anyway, so I guess we're good there. I guess that gives me something to do for Sunday and well, Saturday and Sunday, I guess, because one of the things that is good about Saturday and Sunday is I can just record videos like before noon when there's less noise outside because most of the neighbors are still, indoors or something else and then not hanging out. There's some benches and stuff outside of my house. So in the afternoon, there's often a lot of like other noise out there. And even if, it doesn't show up on the camera, me hearing people talking down there makes me incredibly self-conscious when it comes to uh, talking myself. And that's a kind of interesting in general. Like I had one of those YouTube training sessions again yesterday. They're like every 2 weeks, and yesterday was about shorts production and how to tie shorts into like long form content and how to do shorts. And it's so fascinating to me to be in those training sessions in a lot of ways. Um, First of all, they're done in German by the partner manager for like a lot of German YouTubers, and most of them, I assume, make content in German. And there's a hard culture difference between German YouTube and English language YouTube, I would argue. But also, you have like a lot of people going like, "So, which topics are currently really hot on Shorts?" And I'm like, "Okay, but if apparently currently it's travel content and cooking content are currently big on YouTube Shorts. So you've heard it here." Um, but if I made those kind of content, they have like nothing to do with what I usually do. So you have a lot of people there apparently who are able or willing to basically do whatever it takes to get their channel monetized and get money and so forth. And I find this very interesting because um, there's something larger going on here, I think, in that the idea of being a content creator is seen as one job, where I would argue that while, yes, content creation does work in a similar way, no matter what kind of stuff you do on YouTube, Instagram, or whatever, when it comes to like using the platforms and algorithms, the actual sort of content does also matter. And being Mr. Beast is very different from being a booktuber in a lot of ways, and how the algorithms work within that specific community and all of that. So the idea of going like, well, I want to be a content creator no matter the content, just feels weird. It's like, I want to be an office worker no matter what. I just want to work in an office. And I'm like, okay, but you want to be a secretary, want to be, administrative worker, want to be. Those are different things, right? So yeah, very interesting. Even though I didn't learn much, but then again, I haven't done a single short, so who cares? And I doubt I will ever do shorts. I mean, I don't think the kind of content that I make works really well for shorts. I guess what I could do is once I get back to the whole like Brandon Sanderson thing, I could totally do quick reaction screams if I come across a particularly egregious bit of writing in like any of the Sanderson videos and put that up as a short. All and that's like the one thing that I found interesting when it comes to marketing. Nothing new there, right? It's not like they're dispensing incredibly secret knowledge there. The idea that you basically, if you have like a longer video in production, if you're working on like a long ass video, say a 3 to 5 hour video on the history of Mormonism, right? It would make sense to make shorts, put up shorts with bits and pieces, so to speak, as teasers for the long form video. So you can then basically, prepare people for the long thing coming. Ideally, you'd obviously, add something in the thumbnail or whatever. I don't even know how if shorts have thumbnails. Yeah, but ideally you'd add something like that, so possibly you can pull people in from your shorts viewing onto the other thing. Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: if I was still, without a tooth there, next month when I'm going to Athens, I can totally make those kind of videos with all the Greek food I'm gonna eat again. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, that's certainly something that I found interesting to look at, because while I will never just make content for the sake of content or whatever, I said that I should probably take what I'm doing here somewhat more seriously in a lot of ways, and thinking about such things, especially with something like the Mormonism video, I think might be worthwhile if I can swing it, right? But then again, that if is of course a big if. I mean, I've already found more academic books on Mormonism that I could read in preparation for my uh, for the video. I mean, the thing with like a lot of the short stuff is like shorts being vertical. You ideally film them with your camera and with your phone and not with your camera and all of that. So ideally, you need someone else to actually film for you, or you have like a tripod or something. You know, it it's a lot more complicated, I think. But I obviously will think about it once stuff gets real. Right now, I don't see the reason to do any of that. Um, but yeah, as I said, like trying to be somewhat more professional in the approach, I think, in the way I run things might be worthwhile, right? There's still like the idea of like having these end cards and stuff like that, and I know they exist. I have never looked into how to actually use them and how to put them in. That's something I should probably look at. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do without basically just doing what the machine wants of you. In a lot of ways, and I guess that's sort of like the struggle there, right? We'll see. Certainly an interesting, certainly something to ponder. Yeah. So I guess my next thoughts are I'm still watching all the larger booktube space to see if more happens around the Daniel Green situation. Um, if I feel the need to say something larger about it, because I think the situation itself is not necessarily that much of a. I mean, right now that's very much cut and dry unless Daniel Green comes out and makes any statement, which he hasn't. I just checked his Discord. Um, Things stand as they are right now, and yeah, that's that. So I think it's more interesting to look at how the well, good luck with the tea. I just made new tea. Yeah, the way that the community reacts, I think, is interesting because BookTube as a community, or at least parts of the BookTube community, have always sort of like seen themselves as separate from larger YouTube. And if you follow like other communities, you can see that having those kind of situations happen, having these kind of allegations, having reactions to that, all of that stuff is something that most other larger sort of communities have already gone through and have not found ways of dealing with that, sort of like community specific, developed a community specific culture or whatever, right? Um, so it'll be interesting to see what BookTube does about this, and if BookTube develops a culture of how to deal with that. That's sort of like what I am interested in, because the rest is pretty cut and dry and simple. Disengage, unsubscribe. That's that. Which I guess is one of the things I should do if I am actually subscribed to Daniel Green. I don't even know. I think I follow him on Blue Sky, so maybe I'll uh, unsubscribe there, unfollow there, and I think I never followed him on YouTube, so there's that. Good for me, right? All right, let's do the next sprint, and I'll be back around, I don't know, 10 past ish. And I am back. How did you all do? Hey, Kat, how are you doing? Good thing. Breakfast is important. I did stuff. I guess is mostly what it is. I did some more, replying and stuff on social media, and did some research on my plans for the Revenger trilogy, and mostly that kind of stuff. Also saw that I have an email that I need to read and reply to, but after the 2 calls to different dentists this morning, I'm gonna look at that one later today, I guess. It's one of those things that feels so stupid, but really isn't. I think is how much energy it takes for me to do email reading and replying, and do what's it called, phone conversations. It's frustrating because I used to be much better at it, and then something happened, and I don't know what it is. But at some point, it kind of completely fell apart, and I'm still slowly getting better at this. And I think, you know, I did the 2 calls this morning. I guess an email can wait until later in the day, and that's something I'm gonna do then. So that's where things stand. So I guess the idea is to do the Revenger stuff for the next couple of days. So I have found a fiction book that I will read next to the Druid book by Ronald Hutton, which hopefully will give me some cool ideas. We'll see how that works. But I have yet to read a Ronald Hutton book that does not give me any ideas for something else. He's that kind of writer, which is nice to have like actual academics who are able to write really cool books that are still, while on the poppier side of academia, still very much academic, right? I mean, when you read something like Triumph of the Moon or The Witch, or in this case, Blood and Mistletoe, they have a very extensive like annotations, footnotes, all of that stuff. They're good introductions into, a very specific small field of research, and you can go from there if you want to, look at specific details and focus on one smaller bit of that specific field. So very much looking forward to reading more about the Druids, which may or may not have existed. I mean, they certainly existed in some way or form, but it's apparently, I mean, it's still very much impossible to know what they actually were, and whether they were like wise men, whether they were priests, whether they did human sacrifices or not. It's a mess. So looking at what people think druids were is far more interesting, and it's generally far more interesting to me, and ties back into the stuff that I did for the Arthurian legends, and that I'm sure will come up in whatever else I'm doing. It's one of those things that has just like connects well with how I look at fantasy and historical fiction and history in a lot of ways. So good thing. Yeah, Paulo, I know. That's the thing. Is like with a lot of these kind of things, right? It's like on a rational level, that it's common and that there are good explanations and all of that, but it's very difficult to sort of like shrug that off on a more like emotional level. And yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Beyond also accepting that I'm still officially sick, so I can just give myself an excuse there if I need one. So we'll find out. I'm sure it will all end well. Now, druids are very difficult because the only sources we have for druids are non-druidical sources, right? You have the obviously the classics from like Greek and Roman and antiquity, which is Julius Caesar, and some Greek sources that have been that are lost but are quoted by other authors later, and then you have people like Strabo and so forth writing about them, but they're all none of them really were there except for basically Caesar, and Caesar had ulterior motives for what he wrote about the Gauls, right? In that specific book. So it's very difficult to ascertain anything. And then you have the next big sort of like group of sources, which are Irish and some Welsh sources. But those are medieval sources, and they are written from a Christian perspective, about, like, depending on when you would assume that the Druids were finally suppressed by the Roman Empire. They're like 400-500 years later. And yes, in Ireland, technically, there may have been Druids around when Saint Patrick came over, and we have like some documents from Saint Patrick, but Patrick himself, in the 2 letters that are supposedly written by him and so forth, does not mention Druids. He mentions a lot of trouble and so forth, but he doesn't mention Druids. So all of this is sort of like already sort of like retroactively, so we can assume that there were Druids, but we don't exactly know what kind of group they were, whether it's, if they were like somehow priests or more like politicians, or if it depends on whom you're talking to, and if it's more like an act of engaging in some form of magic that makes you a druid. And if you don't do that, you have like a different job. For example, there's one version in one of the Welsh, the Irish sources, where a blacksmith is called a druid when he does some scrying magic to some divination thing to find out what happens in the future. But the rest of the time, he's just the blacksmith, and at that point, he just says like he does druidry, and I'm like, okay, so maybe it's more like a job thing. It's interesting in that regard, and the archaeological results from since then are not necessarily very conclusive either, because you have some Iron Age tombs and stuff, but since no one there wrote anything down, it's like, what you know. And the only sort of like early Druid, supposedly, well, Gallic writings that are not clearly Roman in any nature are so close to Marseille in a lot of ways that they could be influenced by Greek ideas and thoughts, because Marseille was a Greek colony long before the Romans even came to Gaul. So there's it's not very clear indeed. I appreciate the solidarity, Apollo. That's very much appreciated. I'm sure Cart knows way more about this, but so the first chapter, almost like 100 pages in that Ronald Hutton book, is just an overview over the old sources, basically, and then the rest is about the reconstruction of the Druid as an image from like the 15th century onwards in Britain as a part of the national identity. So I'm very much excited to read that. And then we'll see how accurate Asterix really was. So yeah, I'm gonna do whatever now. Look at stuff. Possibly read that email sooner or later. Figure out what else I need to do today, and certainly monitor the whole like Daniel Green disaster and see if I feel the need to say something around it. And otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. I hope by then the cold will be gone enough for me to go back to the gym, for example. That would be nice. But don't want to force it too much. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I do, as always, very much appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow. And have a good day, everybody.